In today's video, we are going to study the sliding filament theory of muscle contraction as well as the length tension relationship. Okay, so first I am going to start with my notes. I am going to show you guys my notes, and after that I am going to explain a little bit on those notes. Okay, here, take a look. So let's take a look at my notes. This is the note that I made on sliding filament theory. So these are the terms that you need to know in order to understand this: sarcomere, actin, myosin. What is a sarcomere? It's the smallest working unit of a muscle. A sarcomere consists of contractile proteins called as actin and myosin. So actin and myosin are present inside a sarcomere, and a sarcomere is present inside a muscle. It's the smallest working unit of a muscle. This is the basic definition that you need to know in order to understand sliding filament theory. Okay, now this is what a sarcomere looks like. So imagine there's an imaginary line here. It's called the Z line. So the job of a muscle is to bring these two lines close together. So if you look at this example that I prepared over here, this is a normal resting biceps. In unflexed position, this is how a bicep looks like. It's kind of flat. Now when you're flexing it, what happens is these two lines, imagine there's a line between this, and these two lines are coming close to each other. That's the reason you're getting this contracted shape. So this is what I have drawn over here. So what are these lines and how are these related to actin, related to sliding filament theory? That I'll tell you in a minute. For now, just take a look at these things so that later it will be easier for you to understand. So in normal state, this is the length. When it is contracted, these two lines are coming close to each other. Now this is what a myosin filament looks like. It is a little thick and it has these small heads. These heads, myosin heads, are called as cross bridges. Just remember this. So these are like your fingers, right? You're trying to flex your finger. So if you're trying to flex your finger this way, if there is something on top of this, it will move in this direction. That I'll tell you in a bit. Just remember, this is how a myosin filament looks like. An actin filament is a very thin line. This is how an actin filament looks like. So here's the sarcomere. So actin and myosin, a sarcomere comprises of actin and myosin. We already know that, right? So actin and between two actins there will be a myosin. So what this myosin will do is, it will, like I said, like a finger, it will flex like this. All these four heads are going to flex like this against the actin filament. As a result, this actin filament is going to move in this direction. Similarly here, the fingers, imagine it's like this. I'm trying to pull this line in this direction. When that happens, a muscle contracts and both these imaginary Z lines are going to come close to each other. In India, we pronounce this as Z, XYZ, but actually it's pronounced as Z, XYZ. So imagine these lines are called as Z line. We are bringing these lines together, just as you would when you try to contract your biceps. You're trying to bring these lines close to each other like this. Now let's take a look at an optimum length muscle. A muscle which is in its optimum length, that is ideal length, that is perfect length. When it is in its perfect length, this is how a sarcomere inside that muscle looks like. So see, the actin filaments are here, myosin filament is here, and all four heads of the myosin filament is touching this line. See, so many heads are touching this line. Here also so many heads are touching this line. What happens? Can you imagine what will happen in this situation? If these four people are trying to flex like this, imagine I am trying to row a boat, right? So these are rowers. So there are so many people trying to row that boat. If all of them are trying to row that boat at the same time, imagine how much force production will be there. So all four of them are pulling this in this direction. All four of them are pulling this in this direction. So how fast will this contract and how much will be the force of this contraction? Just imagine. So these Z lines are going to come close like this, just as you would contract your biceps, flex your biceps. These Z lines come close to each other, and the force of that contraction is going to be very high. It's going to be huge because so many heads are touching the actin filament over here. So these heads are called as cross bridges. So this is what an optimum lengthened muscle looks like. A muscle at its optimum length looks like this. Now let's take a look at lengthened muscle. How does a lengthened muscle look like? So the Z line are very much apart. They are extremely stretched. The sarcomere is extremely stretched, right? Now if you see only two heads are touching this actin filament. So can you imagine how much will be the force generating capacity if I am trying to pull this like this? Sorry, if I'm trying to flex it like this. So I'm trying to pull this actin filament here, right? So there are only two people contributing over here and two people contributing over here. So obviously the pull is going to be very less. Similarly here also I'm trying to flex like this, right? I'm trying to flex like this. So this is also pulling in this direction, but that force is going to be very less since there are very few people contributing over here. Like I'm trying to row the boat and there are only two rowers, as opposed to here where there are 4 plus 4 8 plus 4 12 plus 4 16 people rowing at the same time, and here only 4 people are rowing at the same time, maybe 8 people, that's it, right? Only two heads are touching, these two heads are not touching. So the force of the contraction is going to be very low. Now let's take a look at shortened muscle. In shortened muscle, if you see, initially there was a gap over here, right? In every place there's a gap. Here there is no gap. So what is happening over here is it's overlapping. Instead of these two facing each other, they are kind of overlapped right now. Both the actin filaments are overlapped and the myosin heads are also not touching. Only 3 are touching over here. Here one is not able to touch this. So even if they try to contract, even if they try to pull this in opposite direction, there isn't much space here. There isn't much space to contract because it's already in a very contracted state. So the force production of a shortened muscle is also going to be very less because there is no space to move at all over here. So this is what a shortened muscle looks like. Now let's take a look at the length tension relationship. So this is the graph that I have drawn. So imagine this is force production and this is muscle length. So as muscle length increases, the force production decreases. So when muscle length is very short, the force production is less. When muscle length is very long, the force production is less. In its optimum or ideal length, the force production is going to be high, which is this that we saw. And we just saw the reason why this is high. So this is called the sliding filament theory. So the length tension relationship is the relationship between the contractile proteins. That is the relationship between actin and myosin of a sarcomere and their force generating capacity. This is the definition of length tension relationship. Optimum length is a slightly stretched sarcomere beyond its normal resting length. So this is slightly stretched. In resting length, remember the muscle is going to be a little, it's the length is not going to be ideal in its normal resting length. So in slightly stretched position, it is having ideal length or optimum length. So at this length, the spatial arrangement between actin and myosin is perfect, and hence the muscle's force generating capacity is very high. So they are basically talking about this. The spatial arrangement is very good. So many heads are touching the actin, and that's why the force production is going to be very high. So this is an optimum length muscle. Then we have the lengthened muscle. This is an extremely stretched sarcomere beyond its optimum length. That is this one. It's extremely stretched. That's why very few heads are touching the actin filament. So the force production is going to be very low. Shortened muscle, sarcomere shrinks. So sarcomere almost shrinks down because there's an overlap of actin filaments happening. So the force production will also be very less. So the contraction of the muscle will also be very less because it's already contracted. So eventually the muscle loses its sarcomere. So the number of sarcomere is also becoming less in a shortened muscle. Over time, the number of sarcomere is going to be less. So with consistent passive stretching over a period of time, new sarcomeres get added and hence optimum length is achieved. So with consistent passive stretching, all of a sudden if you stretch this, it's not going to work. Slowly, bit by bit, when you stretch this muscle over a period of time, what will happen is new sarcomeres will get generated and it will reach its optimum length so that we can produce a lot of force. Muscles have greater force generating capacity at their new lengths but lesser force generating capacity at their normal or resting length. If a person who has a shortened muscle or a person who has lengthened muscle, at their normal resting length they are not going to be able to produce a lot of force, but that same person, after doing some kind of stretching or strengthening based on what their condition is, they will be having greater force generating capacity at this new length. So this new length, they are talking about optimum length, which is this. So we need to bring the muscle in this place, in this way. So that's pretty much it. That's my notes. Alright, so now let's try to understand the sliding filament theory or its application in our day-to-day activities, right? Like in a gym setting, when you're making someone do exercise, how is this concept going to help you? So try to understand what's happening over here. So we understood the sliding filament theory, what actually happens in it, right? The actin, myosin, all that we saw just now. Now, the length tension relationship, let's try to understand that a little bit more. So I'll give you a quick example. Try to see if you are able to connect this concept that you just studied with this example that I'm going to show you. So in a gym, we all have seen a cable cross machine, right? A cable cross with which we do those chest exercises. We all have seen that, right? So try to imagine when you're trying to hold that cable, right? Both ends you're trying to hold it for doing that chest fly. You're trying to hold that cable. At this stretched position, what happens? This entire chest muscle is lengthened, right? That muscle is completely lengthened. So try to imagine that picture that I showed you, where the actin and myosin filaments, right, they are touching each other, but very few myosin heads are in contact with the actin filament. That's exactly what's happening in this stretched position, because the muscle is completely stretched, right? So have you observed that at that position it's very difficult for you to bring that weight close together? This is a position where we struggle a lot while doing that cable crossover machine, right? We come forward, we hold those two mesh cables and we try to pull it. At this point we struggle a lot, but once we have crossed here, once we have reached here, then it's very easy, right? Then very easily you're able to contract that because you have a lot of force in this position. So this is the example of optimum length. So this is lengthened muscle and this is optimum length. At this point you're able to bring that cable crossover close together and you're able to squeeze your chest, right? And you're able to generate a lot of force. No matter how heavy it is, you're able to do it, but at this point you're struggling a lot. Now let's think about the shortened muscle concept, right? So imagine you're taking that crossover and you're trying to cross this way, that pulley, that machine, that cable, you're trying to cross it this way. Is it difficult or easy? Till here it's okay, but when you're trying to cross, it's very difficult, right? The crossing becomes very difficult. Why? Because the muscle is already shortened. It's completely shortened. On top of that, when you're trying to generate force from this gap, it is going to be very tough. That's the reason a shortened muscle as well as a lengthened muscle will not be able to generate a lot of force. You need to have the muscle in its optimum length in order to generate maximum force. Now I'll give you one more example. Let's say I'm trying to squeeze a ball, right? So no, okay, leave that. You all have seen that farmers walk, where we take a pair of dumbbells, we hold it like this and we just walk. We simply walk to and fro in the gym, right? We just hold those two dumbbells in our hands and we just walk. So how does holding that dumbbell feel to you? It's easy, right? You're able to get a good grip on the dumbbell and you're able to hold it properly and you're able to walk. Now if I ask you to do that same farmers walk, that farmers carry exercise, you can Google it if you want to look at the images how it looks like. If I ask you to do that same exercise with a pair of plates, right, instead of dumbbell, if I give you a plate and I try to ask you to hold it, the plates that you see in the gym, if I give you that, how is it going to feel? Now you're going to hold the plates like this, right? Pinch grip. So this is called as pinch grip. Instead of holding the dumbbell like this, now you're leaving the dumbbell and you're holding a pair of plates and you're holding it this way and you're trying to carry it. Do you think it's going to be easy or tough? It's going to be much more challenging, right? Because after some point that plate will try to skid from your hands, right? It will try to skid away. So you have to apply a lot of force and it's very difficult for you to stay in that position. So that is also an example of a shortened muscle. In a shortened position, it's very difficult to apply a lot of force. But in an optimum position, you are able to squeeze that dumbbell. You are able to apply a lot of force. One more example that I'd like to give you is, bicep curls, right? With dumbbells, when you do bicep curls, when you're doing normal curls, it's easy, right? You're able to do that curls. Now if I put you on an inclined bench and I ask you to do that same curls, is it going to be difficult or easy? It's going to be difficult. If I give you a 5 kg dumbbell and I ask you to do a basic bicep curl, let's say you're able to do 10 repetitions of that, right? With that same dumbbell, if I put you on an inclined bench, I ask you to lie on an inclined bench with your back against the bench, and I ask you to do a inclined bicep curl, with that same 5 kg dumbbell, you will probably fail at 7 repetitions or 6 repetitions, because it's more challenging, because in a lengthened position it's very difficult for your muscle to generate a lot of force. Similarly, spider curls, you can google it, you can go to Google Images and take a look at it. Spider curls, it's when you are on that same inclined bench, you're putting a chest on that bench and you're doing those bicep curls, same bicep curls. So in this position you're trying to work on this part of your muscle, so it's already contracted and you're just doing a very short range of motion. So in each of these examples, if you see, the optimum length would be when you are just standing and doing those bicep curls. So in standing position you are able to lift very heavy dumbbells, but in an inclined position you have to drop the weight, you have to reduce the weight, because it's very difficult to get a lot of repetitions in inclined state, because that is lengthened. So every time a muscle is in lengthened position, it will not be able to generate a lot of force, like extremely lengthened. And similarly, every time a muscle is in a very shortened position, it will not be able to generate a lot of force. That's the reason if someone has rounded shoulders or protracted shoulders, right, the shoulder, this area is so squeezed that the number of sarcomeres in this region is going to reduce. Eventually that sarcomere is going to shrink and it's going to get destroyed. There won't be any very less sarcomeres in this region. That's the reason they are not able to generate a lot of force. So if you can bring this back to its optimum length, now they'll be able to generate a lot of force, and the injuries will also be very less in this position. Same for this same person who is having a rounded shoulder, this whole area is extremely lengthened. Understood? So since it's extremely lengthened, this area is extremely stretched, extremely lengthened. If you give that person a high cable row, right, or a high barbell row, inverted way, this high row for the posterior deltoids, if you give them that high row, they are going to get injured. Why? Because in that lengthened state, their muscle is not conditioned to carry that much weight in that lengthened state. That's the reason you ask them to give some isometric exercise, isometric contractions against the wall. You'll ask them to do this, press with the elbow against the wall and slowly strengthen this lengthened muscle in its normal resting position. First bring it in this position, just do some little strengthening, or even if you do some rowing exercises, you'll be doing with half range of motion, not full range, just half, so that slowly in its normal length, first you have to strengthen it. So don't get confused, it's very simple. If a muscle is extremely stretched in a very lengthened position, it will not be able to generate a lot of force. If that muscle is in a very shortened position, then also it will not be able to generate a lot of force. Only if it is in its optimum length, it will be able to generate a lot of force. Now some people had this confusion because in the ACE textbook somewhere it was written that in normal resting position the muscle is not able to generate a lot of force. So what they are trying to say by that is the normal resting position is, for most people, it's either shortened or lengthened. That's the reason in normal resting position they are not able to produce a lot of force. So it has to be either stretched a little to bring it to optimum length, or it has to be strengthened. So if this part is lengthened, then it has to be strengthened a little in order to generate optimum force. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any doubts or if you understood anything at all from this video. Just let me know, and if you haven't, let me know that also. I'll see if I can explain this better or make another video, to make this concept more clear to you guys.